Good evening, everybody, and welcome back. This is, I think, our second or third, I'm getting them confused, update of the evening on Hurricane Sally, hitting South Alabama. Now, if you were with us about an hour ago, we had one of our own employees, JD Crow, out on the pier in Fairhope, showing us that water, those white caps in the water, and showing us that strong wind. Really tough to hear him at points because of that wind. So I am back now with our weather reporter, Lee Morgan. Lee is going to give us an update on the forecast and what we can expect in the next couple of hours and in the next day or so from Sally when Sally makes landfall. So Lee, I know National Weather Service just sent out an update a little while ago. Can you tell us what is different in this update than what we already knew earlier today?
Well, the wind speed hasn't changed, so it's still 80 miles per hour, Category 1 hurricane. The biggest change that people will want to know about is the track. They've continued to shift it a little bit to the east. Not a lot, but a little. So we're now anticipating landfall somewhere around Mobile Bay or a little bit to the east. That affects who ends up on the east side of the eye, who ends up on the west side, can make a difference in surge and the strength of the wind and all that stuff. So right now it continues. It's shifted a little bit eastward all day today, and that trend could continue. I don't know. They haven't really. The guidance, the computer models that they use have all trended that way. So we'll just have to wait and see. Unfortunately, they're still thinking it's going to be such a slow mover. It has been moving at 2 miles an hour all day. It's turned more to the north as of this afternoon. And then the other big change is it looks like when it moves inland over central and south central Alabama, it might be moving a little faster, where they had earlier thought that the center of the storm would move out of Alabama and into Georgia late Thursday night. Now they've sped that up, and it may be more like Thursday afternoon. So that would be good, just to get it out of here a little bit sooner.
So you mentioned earlier in one of our videos that the east side of the hurricane is the more wet side.
Yeah.
Why is that?
That's a good question. I know that the winds rotate counterclockwise around the storm. And one of the things it does is pushes that water up onto the coast. So the surge is usually a bigger factor. And in fact, they've reduced the forecast for storm surge a little bit from Dauphin Island westward to the state line, which is good. It's now like 3 to 5 feet. It had been higher earlier today. Now, parts from Dauphin Island to the east toward the Florida Panhandle is still 4 to 6 feet, and that reflects where that center of the storm is going to come through. So, and then you also have, because of the way that the storms rotate counterclockwise around that center of circulation, those storms on the east side tend to have a little more spin to them, and that's where we watch for the potential for tornadoes, and that will be across South Alabama, Northwest Florida, Southwest Alabama through this evening, and then that will move up into South Central Alabama tomorrow afternoon.
Now, we'll talk about rainfall here in just a second, but before we get into that, Lee, something you and I were talking about before we started this video, I hate to put you on the spot, was that this is, it's been a while since a storm made direct landfall in Alabama on our Gulf Coast. Right. Can you give us maybe an idea of how long that's been, or kind of the last big hurricane you remember?
Yeah, I looked back to that. We've had a lot of close calls. The most recent close call I can think of is Hurricane Nate, and that was in, believe it or not, 2017, I believe. And it came in west of Biloxi, Mississippi as a Category 1 hurricane. So we got a lot of wind and rain from that, but it didn't directly make landfall. But, Alabama only really has, as far as coastline, beachfront, 60 miles, around 60 miles of coastline. So, it's a very small, narrow window to hit. But the last time we had a hurricane direct landfall on the Alabama coast was Ivan, and that was 2004. So it's been a long time. We were due. That's what I've been worried about for the last several years. We were overdue for one coming our way. Hurricane Ivan, I think, was a Category 3 when it came in by Gulf Shores. So that was the last time I can see that we had a direct landfall on the Alabama coast.
Now, there's a lot of changing in this storm, like most storms. And we know, and I have the numbers here if you don't have them in front of you, of the rain amounts that we were expecting a little bit earlier in the day for the whole state. I've got those amounts. And just to quickly go over them, NWS, that's the National Weather Service, said they were expecting between 10 and 15 inches of rain on the Gulf Coast. They're expecting 8 to 10 inches of rain in the Montgomery area, and that on top of, again, storm surges in the Gulf, and then also river flooding, the Alabama River, the Tallapoosa River in the Montgomery area. And they said north of Montgomery, they were expecting around the Clanton area 4 to 8 inches of rainfall. So, right. Lee, is that still the case?
Well, I think they may, parts of north and central Alabama, those rain rates could go down a little bit, what they're forecasting, because the track, as of this latest update, now this can all change as we know, but it has shifted a little more to the south to go over more of south central Alabama. So, we may see later on tonight those rainfall forecasts for places like Birmingham, Tuscaloosa go down a little. We'll just have to wait and see. But if that trend of it continuing to shift to the south once it's inland continues, you will see those rainfall amounts come down, especially for north and north central Alabama.
We've got Dana in the comments. She's talking about Hurricane Frederick of 79. Dana, I was not here at that time. But Lee, do you remember that hurricane?
I do remember that hurricane, and it's actually what got me interested in weather. I don't want to say how old I was, but I was a kid when that came in, and I was in Birmingham, and I remember very distinctly standing on back deck and seeing the clouds from that storm roll in Birmingham and being just amazed that a storm that was hitting Mobile and down, at the coast, we could get clouds from. And that's what started my interest in weather. So I don't remember a lot of stuff, but I remember that very clearly because it was a big storm that did a lot of damage down there.
Dana, that's so funny. Thank you for asking that and for comparing that. We got some points made about Hurricane Opal in 95.
Yes. Opal, came into the east of Alabama on the Florida Panhandle, and I remember that very clearly because my grandparents lived down there, and they were put out of their house for almost a year because of flooding and storm surge from that storm. And I do remember I was in Birmingham at the time, and Birmingham pretty much shut down in anticipation of Opal coming through because of the wind and the rain, and we had a lot of trees down, even up, hundreds of miles inland from where Opal made landfall. And it was a really bad storm that, did a lot of damage all along from Alabama, all along the Florida Panhandle.
It's so interesting to me that you remember these and you can have these tidbits about them. I guess that is what comes with being a weather reporter.
Weather weenie, we remember this stuff. But all of that, I've had them around me. I lived in Florida for years, especially the year that Florida got hit 4 times by a hurricane. I've never been in a hurricane before, so not that I want to be in a hurricane really, but I've never experienced a direct hit from a hurricane, just glancing blows here and there. So they've always fascinated me.
Well, and we're thankful you haven't been in one, Lee. I know JD, when he was out on that pier in Fairhope earlier, you could see his glasses were fogging up and getting droplets of water on his glasses. So we know that it's coming. We can see it. Maybe at the moment it doesn't look as scary as it could be, but we know the National Weather Service, the Alabama Emergency Management Agency, they're very concerned about flooding. Yes. They don't seem as concerned maybe about the winds, but the flooding is something they're very focused on. The quote I wrote down from National Weather Service was hide from wind, run from water. Right. And John DeBlock said from National Weather Service, now is the time to run from that water. Right. Lee, what are we expecting flood-wise, and what do people need to do to prepare for those floods?
Well, people don't think about this, but it's actually the water that kills most of the people in hurricanes. It's either from inland flooding or from storm surge. So water and this potential for flooding is a really big deal. And someone I saw online earlier made the comparison from Sally to Hurricane Florence. And that was a couple of years ago. It hit the Carolina coast. It was a 4, but when it came in, it had weakened to a 1. And, people were kind of poo-pooing it, so thought it was just a 1 coming in. But it did more damage in that state than any storm in recent history with flooding. So we got to take a lesson from that and take this flooding threat very seriously, especially near the coast, especially south and southwest Alabama. They're still predicting 10, 15, 20 isolated areas can get up to 30 inches of rain. And, it's just going to rain and rain, and it's just going to kind of be relentless for at least the next 12, maybe 24 hours as this thing moves in. And it can be, it could prove to be just catastrophic, devastating for that area if these predictions pan out. So you got to really take those seriously, because that floodwater can add up and it can, really endanger people's lives and property.
And lives obviously more important, but both are worrisome. So, Lee, let's talk timing.
Okay.
When are we expecting landfall, and when are we expecting that storm to move up the state?
It looks like anywhere, I'm thinking sometime Wednesday morning, anywhere from early Wednesday morning until, later in the morning is when they're thinking. And so it'll come up through Mobile Bay, and so that's kind of what they're thinking right now. It could speed up. They're not right now. They're thinking it's going to continue on that slow pace. So it's just hours and hours of the same areas getting pummeled with wind and rain. And we've already had this afternoon the first flash flood warning issued, the first of what could be a lot of flash flood warnings I'm worried about for southern Baldwin County and parts of the Florida Panhandle. So those places have already gotten like 2 to 5 inches of rain already, and we're just getting started. So it could really add up. And then parts of south central Alabama, Escambia County, and up through those areas could get a large amount of rain too. So something to be very cautious of.
Now, Kay said she's just tuning in. Thank you, Kay, for tuning in. She wants to know, where is the hurricane going right now? So, Kay, this is what we've got. And Lee, you correct me if I am wrong. We have the hurricane coming up to the coast, expected to make landfall in the South Alabama region sometime tomorrow, between tomorrow morning and tomorrow afternoon. Then we have it going straight up to Montgomery, and then taking a little bit of a turn to go on 85, to go along. It's not going to go on 85, but to go along 85 into Georgia. Lee, is that still the projected path?
Yeah, I think so. I think they're kind of wondering when it's going to make that turn to the northeast. That's always been kind of in question, because the steering currents for this thing are really weak right now, and that's why it's moving so slowly. As of the 4 o'clock update, it was 85. The center of the storm itself was 85 miles due south of Mobile, but it was only moving northward at 2 miles an hour. So, I mean, unless it speeds up, it's just going to take forever to make it on shore. And then once it gets on shore, they're thinking a storm system from the west will kind of nudge it along, and it will take more of a turn to the northeast. And that could happen anywhere from, I would say around the I-85 corridor is where they're kind of projecting it, the center of the storm, to kind of track it right now. And, of course, that could change, and it has changed, but that's what they're looking at right now. And that's where you'll get the strongest wind. There's been a wind advisory issued for parts of south central Alabama for tomorrow. They could get, this is inland areas, they could get wind, I think, gusts up to winds of sustained about 25 miles an hour, gusts as high as 35, 40 miles an hour. So, and that's far inland. That's not right on the coast, where the winds obviously will be a lot stronger.
Now, sorry, I think Lee and my dogs are apparently having barking wars through the audio. So excuse, and I have more, so excuse mine. But we've got Kimberly asking, what about Gulf Shores? We got Doug asking about Daphne. Yeah. Lee, can you give us an idea of when the storm will be in and out of Gulf Shores and then in and out of Daphne?
Well, it's headed that way now, slowly just steamrolling that way. And I think you got all the storm spotters down that way in Gulf Shores. And so, that's going to be one of the action areas. So the rain bands have already started moving on shore. The rain and wind is picking up. We're going to get here shortly to the stronger inner rain bands. And then the center of the storm itself they're thinking sometime hurricane conditions will be possible there late tonight, early Wednesday mornings when they're going to start in earnest.
Now, I'm going to pull up something here that I wanted to show everybody. And this is a state issued, I'd say, state stationed camera off of Interstate I-10 East at mile marker 30.8. So you can see, I know this is not the best quality here. I was just pulling it from the public database, but you can see the water is moving so quickly under that bridge. And you can see how fast that water is being pulled across. Now, I know it's kind of flashing in and out. I think that is from the camera being hit by wind. I don't think that is lightning. But Lee, can you tell us that water moving fast? You can see some of those droplets of rain coming down on the camera.
Yeah.
What does this say to you? Is this kind of scary this far out of landfall, or is this normal?
No, well, I mean, it's normal. You're going to have rain bands come in, way before the core of the storm gets there. So this is just, what hurricanes do. And what you're also seeing is some of that surge pushing up into the area. So 4 to 6 feet possible, above what the water level normally is. So you're seeing some of that too. We're already seeing along the coast, anywhere from Louisiana through Florida, we're seeing that surf creep onto the beach and beyond and over roads and everything. And, Dauphin Island always gets it really bad. And so we're seeing that happen, and it's just progressively going to get worse until that center of the storm crosses through. And then the winds should shift around and things will start to slowly improve. But until you get that core of the storm by you, that wind coming off the Gulf is just going to push that water farther and farther inland. And the winds, as you get closer to the core, are also going to intensify and pick up. So we're just getting started, unfortunately. Y'all take care and be safe. I mean, this is a very serious situation, and we haven't really experienced anything like this in a while. So
and this is a camera also on I-10, and it's around the same mile marker, around that 30 mile marker, but this is on the other side of the roadway. And if you look kind of at the bottom of that screen, if I can pull it back up, they're not cooperating super well, but at the bottom of that screen, you can see the ridges of the water pushing out to the right side under the bridge. And that just shows you, if this camera, which is pretty up high on top of this bridge, again, this is a state camera, is showing you how much that water is pushing, then I can only imagine in person, or if you're standing on that shoreline, how that looks.
I know.
So
I just want to yell at those people on the bridge. What are they doing? They need to go home. What are you doing driving out in a hurricane in a big old truck? Can be those winds, can off the bridge, which is elevated, are going to be even a little bit stronger. It's just a dangerous thing to be doing as a hurricane is coming on shore, And
you can even see the water getting on that camera. We can't hardly even see it anymore. Right. So let's listen to Lee. Get off the roads, or you're going to have Lee mad at you, and you don't want that. She's a mom, which means she can get mad 40 times more than the rest of us. So it is. So Lee, thank you so much for giving us an update on this hurricane. We are going to be looking for all of your forecast updates on AL.com and looking for everything that you have to tell us about Hurricane Sally. Everybody watching, thank you so much for tuning in. Be safe, and we will bring you the latest updates here and on AL.com.